At 7:06 p.m., a young pilot over the Bass Strait asked a simple question. Is there any known traffic in my area? The answer from the ground was no. Yet Valentich insisted something was playing a game with him, hovering just above his cockpit. The last 17 seconds of his radio transmission didn't contain words at all. Instead, the frequency was filled with a harsh, rhythmic, metallic scraping sound, a sound that has never been explained by aviation experts. After that sound, there was only silence. At 20 years old, Frederick Valentich lived for the sky. He was a young man with a focused, almost intense passion for flight, having spent nearly 150 hours in the air. On the afternoon of October 21st, he was in high spirits. He had planned a flight to King Island, a trip across the Bass Strait, ostensibly to pick up a group of friends. He moved through the hangars of Moorabbin Airport with the confidence of someone who had found his calling. He checked his Cessna 182L, a sturdy four-seat aircraft, ensuring the fuel levels were right, and the engine was humming perfectly. As he climbed into the cockpit, he wasn't just a pilot. He was a young man on a mission, seeking the freedom that only the open air provides. The takeoff at 6:19 p.m. was textbook. As Frederick banked the Cessna away from the city lights of Melbourne, the sun was beginning to drop, casting long, dark shadows across the Australian coast. He watched the familiar landmarks of the shoreline slip away, replaced by the vast dark glass of the Bass Strait. For a while it was just Frederick and the rhythmic drone of the engine. He reported his position at Cape Otway, the last point of land before the crossing. At this point, everything was normal. He felt the vibration of the controls and watched the pale light of the sunset fade into a deep, bruised purple. He was heading into the heart of the strait, a place where the sky and the water eventually become one. The mystery began with a simple question to the ground controller, Steve Roby. Frederick asked if there was any known traffic in his area below 5,000 feet. The answer from the radar was a definitive no. But Frederick insisted. He described 4 bright lights that looked like landing lights, moving at incredible speed. He claimed the object had just passed over him at least 1,000 feet above. Over the next 6 minutes, the conversation became a descent into the unknown. Frederick described a shiny metallic surface and a strange, glowing green light on top of the craft. He told the controller that the object was playing a game with him, orbiting his plane, vanishing, and then reappearing on his other side. As Frederick spoke, his tone shifted from professional to frantic. He reported that his own engine was beginning to rough cycle. It was stuttering and losing power, as if something was interfering with the mechanical heart of his plane. The controller listened as Frederick described the object hovering directly above him. "It is hovering, and it is not an aircraft," were his final coherent words. Then came that inexplicable 17-second metallic sound. It sounded like something was being torn apart or ground together with immense force. When the sound stopped, the frequency went dead. For days, the Australian military and civilian teams launched one of the most intensive searches in the region's history. They scoured the Bass Strait for any sign of a crash. They looked for the yellow tail of the Cessna, for life jackets, or even a single drop of oil on the surface of the water. They found nothing. The ocean was a perfect, undisturbed mirror. Theories immediately exploded across the globe. Was it a secret military prototype? Had Frederick been abducted? Or was there something even more sinister, lurking in the dark corners of the atmosphere? The world was left with a haunting image of a young pilot being chased through the night by a light he couldn't name. The investigation into the disappearance of Frederick Valentich soon moved from the waters of the Bass Strait into the records of his own life. While the public focused on the terrifying radio transcript, investigators began to piece together a portrait of a pilot who lived in two worlds. Frederick was a young man of 20 who took his flight training seriously. Yet he was also an avid researcher of unexplained aerial sightings. He had spent years documenting cases of strange lights and metallic crafts, creating a personal archive that mirrored the very things he reported on that final night. This deep-seated fascination suggests that as Frederick flew into the darkness, he wasn't just a pilot. He was a man whose mind was primed to see a mystery in every shadow. As the search for debris turned up nothing, aviation experts turned their attention to the mechanics of the flight and the physics of the human body. The Bass Strait at night is a place of total sensory deprivation. When the sky is black and the water is equally dark, the horizon, the primary tool a pilot uses to stay level, simply vanishes. For a pilot with only 150 hours of experience, the reliance on sight over instruments is a common and often fatal trap. Without a visible horizon, the inner ear begins to send false signals to the brain. This is known as spatial disorientation. The green light, Frederick reported, the one he said was hovering above him, provided a vital clue for forensic analysts. In aviation, a steady green light is the standard navigation signal on the right wing of an aircraft. If Frederick had inadvertently entered a slow, banking turn, while looking up and searching the sky for intruders, his inner ear would have adjusted to the turn, making it feel like he was flying straight. If he then pulled back on the yoke to climb away from the object he thought was above him, he might have flipped the Cessna 182L onto its back without even realizing it. In this inverted state, everything Frederick knew about the world would have been reversed. The lights he saw playing a game with him were likely the reflections of stars or distant ships on the mirror-like surface of the water, now appearing to be above him because he was upside down. The most chilling part of this technical theory concerns his engine. A Cessna 182L is not designed for inverted flight. The fuel system relies on gravity. If the plane were upside down, the fuel would stop flowing, causing the engine to rough cycle and stutter exactly as Frederick described over the radio. The final 17 seconds of metallic scraping, which sounds so alien on the recording, may actually have been the sound of the engine's internal components grinding together as they starved of oil and fuel, or the aerodynamic stress on the airframe as the plane entered a high-speed graveyard spin toward the water. In those last moments, Frederick may have been diving at full speed toward the surface of the Bass Strait, believing he was being pursued by a craft from another world, when in reality he was chasing his own reflections. The Bass Strait, often called a ship graveyard for its treacherous conditions and depth, swallowed the Cessna and its pilot without leaving a single trace. No oil, no life jackets, and no wreckage ever surfaced, while the legend of Frederick Valentich continues to be told as a story of a mid-air abduction. The clinical reality points to a more human tragedy. A young pilot who lost his connection to the earth and, in the disorientation of a black night, followed his own imagination into the deep